Louis Riel Teachers Association. I'd like to thank everybody for being here this evening, and I'd also like to welcome the folks who are joining us via live stream on LRSD TV. The role of a school trustee is an important one, and we're really glad that you're taking part in the democratic process by learning more about the individuals who are running for election to serve on the Board of Trustees of the Louis Riel School Division. Before we begin the forum, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Louis Riel Teachers Association recognizes our history as an organization and as settlers to these lands, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Inninawak, Anishinaabe, and Dakota peoples, and on the homeland of the Red River Métis. The LRTA respects the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of both the past and the present, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with the Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And so I invite everyone joining us here and virtually to take a moment to consider your personal connection to the land acknowledgement, to reflect upon its meaning to you, and to consider the actions you are taking, be they personally or professional, to move the vital work of reconciliation forward. At this time, I would also like to thank all of the candidates present this evening for agreeing to take part in tonight's forum. The candidates who have joined us tonight are Brent Amos, Francine Champagne, Darlene Garier, Amy Greene, Irene Nordheim, Robert Page, Ryan Palmquist, Tom Parker, Sandy Nemeth, and Chris Sigerson. Thank you all for being here. Last-minute regrets were received this morning from Cindy Turner. I would also like to acknowledge regrets received earlier from school trustee candidates Jason Kochi, Michael Yao, as well as from Pam Kolachuk, who was acclaimed in Ward 4. No responses to our event were received from Ward 3 candidate Selena Bieber and from Chipalo Simonyola, who was acclaimed in Ward 4. At this time, I would like to acknowledge and introduce our moderator for this evening. Frank Restall is the former president of the Louis Riel Teachers Association, having served 9 years in the role. Frank was also a teacher in the Louis Riel School Division who spent much of his career working with students from across the division. He's also a resident and taxpayer of LRSD. So thank you so much, Frank, for joining us this evening and agreeing to take on the role of moderator. Frank?
Thank you very much, Marcella. A very good evening and a very warm welcome to all the candidates and everyone who has joined us here this evening, whether in person or through the live streaming. It is my pleasure to be the moderator of this evening's town hall. Let us please begin by reviewing this evening's agenda. Please note that this evening's program will be comprised of 2 formal components and a concluding informal component. The formal part of the town hall begins with candidate statements. Each of the candidates present will have the opportunity to introduce themselves and speak as to why they have decided to run for school trustee of the Louis Riel School Division. Following the candidate statements, the second part of tonight's forum will be the question period. Each of the candidates will have the opportunity to respond to 2 randomly drawn questions. Prior to this evening, each of the candidates has received the complete list of possible questions to be posed. The informal part of our meeting follows the question period and is an opportunity for fellowship, as well as an opportunity for candidates to meet directly with the electorate. At this time, members of the community will be able to ask questions of the individual candidates running for positions as school trustee. The names of the candidates who have indicated they will be present this evening are listed on the reverse side of your agenda. Please feel free to keep this agenda and use it tonight to take any notes you feel are relevant in helping you select the individuals for whom you will support. I would now like to call upon the candidates to begin the candidate statement segment of tonight's forum. A reminder to the candidates that you have up to 3 minutes for this segment. The timer will start when you begin speaking. With 30 seconds remaining, a yellow card will be raised by Vice President Jay McGurran, who is practicing in the back of the hall. So as you're speaking, that's your signal for 30 seconds remaining. When time has expired, a bell will ring. And I ask that you immediately end your remarks at the sound of that bell. I will be drawing names from a jar, this jar, to determine the speaking order. First this evening is...
This is when you wonder if you want to win.
Darlene Garier. Darlene? Your 3 minutes will start with you speaking.
Hello, my name is Darlene Garier, and I'm running for school trustee in LRSD Ward 3. I'm running because I firmly believe that every child deserves a good quality education, and I think we can provide that in our school division. I believe as a trustee that I can contribute to that. I have a vast group of experience just from being in education my whole life. I was a student in Riel, which was St. Boniface before the amalgamation. I graduated from Pierre Radisson Collegiate, and from there I went on to University of Manitoba. My first teaching job was at Riel School Division, and my first principal was Mr. Tom Parker, who is here as our trustee. That's interesting, and I loved working in Riel School Division. I spent years as a classroom teacher, and I worked as a guidance counselor, and I finally ended up in the school division office. This is where I was able to learn that there was a lot of times that parents needed to have some support in connecting to systems and to having their voice heard. And I had the opportunity to work with many trustees, and I saw what they did. I had really good role models, like Louise Johnson, and people that have been longtime trustees. So I knew that there was a way to facilitate the community voice and the voice of parents. One of the things that is really important to me is that we hear the voice of our constituents so we can bring that to the table. So I'm hoping that if I'm elected as your representative that I'll be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Next. We shall hear from Sandy Nemeth. Sandy?
Thanks, Frank. Good evening, everyone. Bonjour, bonjour. I'm Sandy Nemeth, and I'm running for re-election in Ward 3. If you're not familiar with how the ward system is set up, that is the part of the school division that is south of Bishop Grandin, a little bit south of the perimeter, and then between both rivers. I am past chair of the board and current vice chair. I am also past vice president and current Region 5 director on the Manitoba School Boards Association. I've been on the provincial executive for close to 9 years now. I'm also a member of the Provincial Education Funding Review Committee, which is tasked with providing feedback and perspective on behalf of school boards to the technical team that is working to develop the new funding formula that we are going to be seeing within the next couple of months. I'm also a relatively new member to the Dakota Community Center Board of Directors, having served with that group for a couple of years. I contribute a regular column to the Community Review East, which used to be the Lance, and I'm a part-time employee of the University of Manitoba. My journey to the school board table was as a member of what was and still is a very active parent council at École Saint-Germain. I joined when my son started kindergarten. Our kids are both graduates of Collège Jean Sauvé, and it was really being intrigued about this entity called the board that was crafting policy and making decisions about, that was influencing our kids' educational experience. And I found that the more I learned, the more I wanted to know. And it was the January, I guess, of 2010 that I started attending regular board meetings and haven't looked back. If I'm to encapsulate very briefly what it has compelled me to run, I would focus on three things, but it's not limited to three. The first one is a real desire on my part to see some of the programs and services, the initiatives, the bold and creative thinking, the curiosity that's been inspired be protected. That, I think, is very much a legacy piece of trustees that have come before me, but also something that warrants focused thinking and lots of important conversation. Segue to, and a supporting piece to that would be the reality that funding for public education in Manitoba is not keeping up with the rate of inflation, and I'm very, very invested in the conversations that are going to ensure that funding for public education stays what it needs to be for now and into the future. The third thing is that I really enjoy the work. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm meeting a lot of people. There are some tough and not always pleasant conversations, but at the end of the day, the work is very meaningful. I feel that I'm serving my community well. I hope they feel the same way, but at the end of the day, there is that part of it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy. Our next speaker, Francine Champagne. Francine?
Good evening. I'm Francine Champagne. Born and raised in St. Boniface, I'm thrilled to be running for school trustee for Louis Riel School Division Ward 1. As the mother of a university student who has been through homeschooling and public schooling, I'm confident that I would bring knowledge and wisdom to the table. My work as a professional translator and business owner for the past 21 years, and French teacher for the Université de Saint-Boniface would allow me to exercise my duties in both official languages. As a school trustee, I'm committed to upholding integrity, respect, compassion, and positive change. I believe that the voices of parents and students alike should be heard in order to create an effective learning environment. In the past year especially, I have been approached and encouraged by members of the community to become a school trustee. I have answered the call because I want to offer a stronger voice to the parents and the students within the division. As a team member and being a critical thinker, I'm hoping to leave my mark on the current generation and the generations to come. Being fully bilingual in both French and English, I would act as a liaison between the schools and the community at large. I would advocate for French immersion programming as well. Learning a second language not only offers students more chances of landing a good job or advancing in their career, but also gives them an insight into other cultures. They will be more prepared and confident to travel the world and explore other people's ways of living. I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead, and I would appreciate your support on voting day. Bonsoir, je m'appelle Francine Champagne. Née et ayant grandi à Saint-Boniface, je suis ravie de me porter candidate au poste de conseillère d'école du quartier 1 de la division scolaire Louis Riel. En tant que mère d'une étudiante universitaire qui a fait ses études à domicile et à l'école publique, je suis convaincue que j'apporterai connaissance et sagesse à la table. Ma carrière en tant que traductrice professionnelle et de professeur de français à l'Université de Saint-Boniface me permettrait d'exercer mes fonctions dans les 2 langues officielles, tant en français qu'en anglais. En tant que conseillère d'école, je m'engage à maintenir intégrité, respect, compassion et changement positif. Au cours de la dernière année en particulier, des membres de la communauté m'ont approché et encouragé à devenir commissaire d'école. J'ai répondu à l'appel parce que je crois que les parents et les élèves ont le droit d'être entendus afin de créer un milieu propice à l'apprentissage. En tant que membre d'équipe au sein du Conseil, j'espère laisser ma marque sur la génération actuelle et les générations à venir.
Thank you, Francine. Our next speaker, Amy Greene. Amy?
All right. Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Greene. I'm running for Louis Riel, Ward 1. I've lived in St. Boniface for about the past 5 years. I've been involved with the community throughout that time and for a few years prior to that. I've served on PAC at École Provencher, and I've volunteered with the school. I've helped plan and execute fundraisers for everything from new iPads to the playground renovations. I've also helped with hot lunches and supervised for lunch hour chess club and planned the year-end barbecue. I am self-employed and I work part-time in home care. I've also worked with foster children of all ages and disabilities. I believe that learning never ends. It can happen at any time or day, any time of day or any point in your life. I am a lifelong student. I've got my tourism management diploma from Red River College, and I've studied at Evolve College of Massage Therapy and at University of Winnipeg. I'm a hard worker and I think outside the box. I want to make a positive change and advocate for our children so that they have a better education and become self-sufficient adults. I believe that we can start by making changes immediately that have very little cost but have very high impact. I want to advocate for our teachers to make sure that they have the resources when they need them. And I also want to hear from the parents and the families if they have any concerns or questions. One thing I noticed is that we are lacking community. If anything, the past couple of years have taught us is that we all need to come together and support each other. While I was on PAC, there was always a need for volunteers, whether it was for hot lunches or for other events. I've noticed that some PACs, some PACs don't have a lot of parent involvement, and some PACs don't even have enough, or they're barely have enough to make quorum. So if you're a member of the community, did you know that you can actually attend PAC and you don't even have to have a child into the school to help out? So if you're here or if you're watching this, I strongly suggest that you actually get in touch with your school come tomorrow or this week and actually volunteer where you can, because I think we all need to make a difference. After all, it does take a village to raise a child. I decided that instead of spending money on a campaign, I would actually do what a trustee needs to do and find money and stretch it amongst a few schools. So I'm doing what I know how to do, and I'm hosting a fundraiser. It's going to be on October 30th, with all the proceeds going to the schools in Ward 1. Sorry to the other wards, but there's a lot of schools in this division. So if you're interested in learning more information about the fundraiser, come speak to me after the event. I just wanted to say thank you, and good luck to my fellow nominees. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Our next speaker, Tom Parker. Tom?
That could be the toughest part of the evening, getting out of my seat. I am running because I have a love affair with education. My early life was not great, and school was a haven to me, and it was an inspiration by many good teachers that led me to teaching. Are you getting a hum? No? Okay. So my history is a teacher in Belleville Elementary School, and I taught grade 6. I went back to university to get a degree in physical education, and I had an opportunity. I was finished classes, and St. Boniface School Division called me and said, we have a lady who's gone into labor sooner than we thought. Are you available to teach grade 1? And I said, sure. I have never done anything more difficult in my life, teaching grade 1. So my hands go out to the early years teachers. You really do hard work. My leadership things involved, when I was president of my high school, got involved in all kinds of things. I met with the phys ed staff to look at how we're building a track club. I met with the principal on a regular basis, and it was a small high school, so it was not uncommon for him to see me in the hall and say, I want you to drop by my office at 2 o'clock, and we chat about what was happening in the school and what the students were looking at. So I had this wonderful experience in school, and I'll never forget it, and I think that's what kind of led me into teaching. So grade 6 elementary, I've told you about the grade 1, and then following that, I had teachers come to me and say, I'll do your music if you would do my phys ed. And I thought, well, that's a good deal. And then another teacher said, I'll do your art. Or no, yeah, I'll do your phys ed if you, let me get this right. I will do your art, and I will make sure that I do their phys ed. And I taught it in a hallway. There was no gym. So I got CN mats, and we did our whole experience there, keeping quiet enough so that we didn't disturb any classroom. I then went on to look at phys ed as a career, and I went to University of Manitoba, and there I got to be the dean student rep.
Thank you, Tom. Our next candidate, Ryan Palmquist. Ryan?
I'll just leave this here, I guess. Hello, my name's Ryan Palmquist, and I'm a candidate for Riel School Division Ward 3. I am a resident of the Glenwood neighborhood of St. Vital, where I live with my wife and 2 children, and I'm running in the Ward 3 neighborhood where I grew up on Woodydale Avenue, and where I attended school at Dr. D.W. Penner, Minnetonka School, and then later Glenlawn Collegiate, a school where there are at least 2 of my former teachers in this room right now, including Irene here. I am running for school trustee as an extension of my overall work and support and living in public life in this community. I've been very active in my own neighborhood and the broader Southeast Winnipeg community for many years, including my wife and I's annual community cleanup we organize, spearheading the King George V Dog Park Committee, my monthly When I File column in the Lance, now CanStar East, as well as the 1 or 2 other things I forgot. I became particularly interested in collaboration with the Riel School Division coming out of my current job, which is the last 8 years I've been employed in the office of City Councillor Matt Allard. And in that office, I had the opportunity to collaborate with the Riel School Division on a project I envisioned to convert an obsolete school bus loop alongside Collège Bellevaux into a community and public space, which was created along with the partnership of third-party group Winnipeg Trails. It was an extremely exciting project that the Louis Riel School Division was a fabulous community stakeholder and partner in envisioning, engaging, and executing this project. And it made me realize that the division is an organization that is very much after my own heart and values. I am running this election on 3 main areas and commitments. The first of which is I propose that swimming lessons can become available through school, either through divisional programming or through partnerships with other third-party groups, or ideally the City of Winnipeg and public facilities. I've brought this up many times at the door, canvassing this election, and it's very popular with many people, and I've learned that it turns out that this program was offered at one point in the past, I believe discontinued roughly the year I was born, from what it sounds like. I believe that we have a very large number of public facilities across the city that are able to be used, and we can make water safety and swimming more accessible for more families. And second, aside from supporting the overall positive direction and progressive direction of the LRSD has been taking in recent years, I envision that the division can become more active and more engaged on the file of walking to school and safety in and around school zones. The LRSD is a respected and important community stakeholder, and I believe it can take
Thank you, Ryan. Our next candidate, Irene Nordheim. Irene?
I haven't started yet, Jay. Frank, thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear your voice again, very distinctive as always. I'm going to start in the 1990s. Aren't you glad I only got 3 minutes? My dad, who had a grade 8 education, coming from Ireland, took it upon himself during the Film and Friday days to go to every school board in Winnipeg and make a presentation about why education is so critical. He went to the people who were the choice for the voice before it was popular to be saying that. And I would say that my dad had an impact. He would speak to standardized testing, for example, and using his farming background would say, just because you weigh the pig more doesn't make him fatter. He would also go to the board and talk about how much it costs to educate a child in public education. And then the bad news was he used a different figure every time. My dad did not like to have facts cloud his stories. But he would then say, this is how much it costs to incarcerate somebody. Education is cheaper than incarceration. So my dad had the foundation for which our family is now well known. Our Sunday dinners consist of my sister, who is an assistant superintendent in another division that will not be named. My two of my sons are in education. Both of my daughter-in-laws teach grade 1, 2, and you're right, Tom, that's a hard job to follow. And my nephew has just started his career in teaching, and we have Sunday dinners together. I want you just to take a moment to have a minute of silence for the people who are not educators around our table, because they don't get very much talking time. It is incredibly important to me to be involved in education. It's not something I'm taking lightly. The story that I just told you is the motivation, is an obligation for me to support public education. My background, I'm a physical education graduate. This is what happens when you go to the dark side and become an administrator. But I'll tell you what, I have seen joy in kids' faces in all of our well-rounded education in Louis Riel. I will support that. I will support our multi-year strategic plan. And I want you to know
Thank you, Irene. Next candidate, Robert Page. Robert?
Well, good evening. I'm Robert Page, and I'm running for re-election in Ward 2. And I looked at the paper this morning, and it said there's an article, School Trustee's Job Not for Faint of Heart. It says that a trustee has to approve the budget, hire key personnel, determine policy priorities, and ensure proper transportation for students. These are significant responsibilities. Also, of course, to make an effort to spend your tax dollars wisely and not to demand too many extra ones. The article goes on to say that trustee candidates should also demonstrate at least a basic level of competence. They should have experience serving or volunteering on different boards. Well, in the past, I was the Environmental Action Committee Chairman for the Manitoba Naturalist Society. That's naturalists, not naturists. And I was the Seine River School Division president of the Teachers Association for 2 terms. And so how did I get into being a trustee? I was a trustee for 1 term in Seine River School Division when I lived in St. Norbert. I got involved there because I believe strongly in French immersion. My first job was St. Pierre-Joly. I was the English teacher, but it was an all-French community. And I got so involved with the people there that I decided that if I ever had children, I would make sure that they became fluent in Canada's second official language. And St. Norbert, St. River School Division, has a dual track system. And it was single track from K to 8, and after my children, I had 3 sons and 3 daughters, when they started going to St. Norbert Collegiate, they were losing their French because I wrote an article for Canadian parents for French immersion titled Dual Track or Back Burner. So anyways, I became a trustee and had a lot of changes made. It's still a dual track school, but it's much stronger now, and I totally support the French immersion program in Louis Riel. And 3 minutes goes by really fast, so thanks for coming out. I think the real news tonight is the fact that you're here. It's the first time I've seen a candidate.
Thank you, Robert. Our next speaker, candidate Chris Sigerson. Chris?
Thank you very much. I'd certainly like to begin by thanking the LRTA for this wonderful opportunity for us all. This thing's rolling away. I better pull it back. I think I saw Robert doing that. This is my 4th election, and it's the first time we've had a candidate forum. And I think that's really terrific that we can all get together and talk and have the community come and see us and listen to us and interact with us. It's very important. I can tell you that I'm Chris Sigerson. I'm running in Ward 2 for re-election. I was born and raised in not only in LRSD, but in Ward 2. We still live there. I live there with my wife and 2 children. I was raised by teachers. My parents were both teachers. My sister was a teacher in St. Vital School Division. My mother's a teacher in St. Vital School Division in the school that I went to, which is kind of interesting when you're a kid. And I have various other relatives who are teachers. And from that, I learned how difficult being a teacher is, and I learned that I didn't want to be a teacher. So I ended up becoming a lawyer, but I still have the great love and respect for public education that I learned from those great family conversations. And when my children became old enough to start going to school, I was involved in the parent council at the local school, and I thought that I should use my skills and get involved with public education and use the knowledge that I have. And I put my name forward, and lo and behold, I was elected, and I've been there ever since. And as Sandy said, I've been enjoying it, and I'm hoping that I'm doing a good job. I think I've been doing a good job, and I hope other people feel that way as well. My daughter has since graduated from CGS. She's now at USB, and it looks like she's going to become a teacher herself. And my son is still at CGS. So that's the reason I originally ran. But during my time on the board, I've learned a lot of things, and I've become involved in a lot of issues. And I believe that there are three things that trustees need to do to ensure that kids get proper education and things are working well. And that's that we need to have equity and inclusion. We need to make sure every kid is welcome and feel safe in their schools. We also need physical infrastructure. We have to work on the physical infrastructure of all our schools. A lot of our schools are aging, but I think we've been doing a great job as a board to do a lot of work on that to make sure everyone feels comfortable. And the final thing, the most important, is the human infrastructure, and that's the teachers, that's the staff, that's the custodians, that's the bus drivers. And I think we have to make sure that they have all the tools that they need to make sure that they do a great job, and they keep on doing a great job. I think we've been doing well in that, but my goal is to keep on doing that and to do it even better. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. And not really a surprise, our next candidate, Brent Amos. Brent?
Thank you, sir. I'm Brent Amos. I'm running in Ward 3. For 30 years, I've been a member of the community, and I have a passion for our community. And that's one reason why I'm running. I have 3 children who graduated from Burland and Glenlawn, and believe it or not, I have a grandson. I know, it's unbelievable. I recently retired, and now I believe I have the time to put forward to make our community even better, and I have decided to run for school trustee. I have to take my glasses off. Okay, maybe I am a little old. As soon as my kids started school, I knew I wanted to be involved. They started school, I joined the Parents Association at Burland, where they all went through. I became a member, and then I became president for 5 years. My kids started basketball, so I said, okay, I guess I better join that board. So for 20 years, I've been on the board of Dakota Community Center, first as a board member, and now as the current convener for basketball. That is one of my passions. As a board member, I did lobby provincial and civic government for funding, and one of the results of that is that beautiful outdoor court that's sitting right now at Dakota Community Center. There was some crime in my area. My car was broken into. What can we do? So as a founding member of Citizens on Patrol in River Park South, we had a community forum at Dakota Community Center. We had a lot of involvement from the community, so we opened up a Citizens on Patrol program, which is where citizens patrol the area and are basically eyes and ears for the police. And I became president of that association too. Winnipeg Minor Basketball Association, as a coach in the league, I found that kids weren't being treated fairly. There was not equal playing time and equitable playing time amongst the kids. So again, what did I say? Well, it's not fair. I joined the board of Winnipeg Minor Basketball Association. I created the Fair Competition Committee, and I put together rules and regulations to ensure all children in the league received equal playing time. I have coached for 15 years in the school division, and I just absolutely love it. I've coached at Burland, Glenlawn, and Frontenac, and I love working with the kids. When I saw referees being treated badly, I decided to become a referee to mentor the young ones. My daughter and son-in-law are teachers in the division, as are many of my friends. I have got a lot of things in my...
Thank you, Brent. A request. This now concludes the candidate statement portion of the agenda, and I would like to ask everyone present to join with me once again in thanking all of the candidates for their remarks. We shall now move to the question period, where the candidates will be responding to questions regarding an array of topics they will need to address and to consider as school trustees. Each candidate will be given 2 questions to answer, and they are permitted up to 2 minutes to answer each assigned question. The timer will start when you begin speaking. With 30 seconds remaining, once again, Jay McGurran will be waving the yellow card at the back of the hall. And when time has expired, the bell, which so far this evening has caused me to want to line up for recess, the bell will ring, and I ask that you immediately end your remarks at the sound of the bell. In addition, the candidates will remain seated during the question period. There are microphones in front of each of the candidates, so it will not be necessary to come up to the podium. For the question period, the candidates have been grouped according to the ward in which they are running. The order to answer questions was randomly selected prior to this evening. The questions themselves will be drawn at random from a list of questions that was shared with each of the candidates. The questions will be put up on the screen for the community to see. Candidates, a reminder that you have a copy of the questions in front of you. We will begin with Ward 1. The first, yes, I have to make sure that I'm accurate with everything here. The first question will go to Francine Champagne, who will have 2 minutes to respond to it. Afterwards, Tom Parker will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question. And the question is number 13. Reading, recent shifts in social attitudes have led to conversations about systemic biases and racism. As a trustee, how would you ensure that the division acknowledges systemic biases and develops a plan to remedy them?
As a trustee, I would ensure that the division acknowledges systemic biases and develops a plan to remedy them by first recognizing and challenging our own unconscious bias, by being prepared to change our perspective, by making sure the curriculum is representative, and by celebrating the students' strengths and gifts. When children are treated as valued members of society, they thrive and are more likely to succeed later in life. I find that the feeling of belonging is key. Thank you.
The evening has been structured, the questions have been set, and the candidates can choose what to address as part of their response and as to what to include. That would be something that perhaps you may wish to follow up with any of the candidates in the informal session. We move along to Tom Parker. Tom Parker, same question.
I would look at systemic biases and racism as something that comes under diversity, and our aim as a trustee should be to allow for equity for all students. So reconciliation is part of that. That is a perfect example of what we're working hard on now. And that shows up in the area of social levels. We have some areas that require more assistance in schools, and we do that by having extra staff and in particular extra assistance, education assistance. So we're constantly looking at making equity one of the things we do in schools, and that allows support for the teacher and a better learning situation for the student. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. The second question will go to Amy Greene, who will have 2 minutes to respond to it. Afterwards, Francine Champagne will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Question number 4. What is the most important responsibility of a school board? Amy, the timer will start when you speak.
So I think the most important responsibility of the board would be the future of our children. The school board needs to represent our children so that they are well-rounded, excuse me, knowledgeable, responsible, and self-sufficient. Now I know there's things like, obviously our jobs would be policy, budgeting, working on things like transportation and stuff as well. But at the end of the day, it's making sure our children's futures, like that's the ultimate goal. We want to make sure that money is spent on the right things. And making sure that you're getting quality versus quantity, and weighing pros and cons of if you're bringing in. I'm losing my thoughts here. At the end of the day, we just need to provide the best for our children, and we need to listen to our parents and our families, and also the teachers and the staff as well.
Thank you, Amy. Next is Francine Champagne, who will respond to the same question. Francine?
The most important responsibility of school boards is governance. This would involve working with communities to improve student achievement in their local public schools, and to advocate for the parents and the students who encounter issues that cannot be resolved at school level. The school board acts as a bridge between the school district and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Francine. The third question will go to Tom Parker, who will have 2 minutes to respond to it. Afterward, Amy Greene will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Question number 5. What can be done by the LRSD board to ensure successful student outcomes?
I think one of the things that has to be done is to make sure that we provide information and assistance to teachers. In order to have successful students, we have to make sure that there's enough one-on-one time that the students have that opportunity to learn. And we can provide EAs. I think we depended a lot on EAs being educational assistants to help the classroom teacher and to do work with 1 or 2 students that need a little extra help. So our job in the board is to make sure that we're aware that students are not all at the same level, and we have to provide extra supports to allow them to move on successfully in their education. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next is Amy Greene, who will respond to the same question. Amy?
So I think we need to recognize that there are different types of learners. For example, I'm a visual learner. You can lecture me about anything, and unless I'm doing it or seeing it, I won't make sense of it. When you do a Google search, it came up with 13 different ways to learn. And I didn't learn this until I was in my 30s. So my thought process was, why aren't we helping these kids by figuring out what kind of learners they are and getting them together? You know, if you're a visual learner, let's put visual learners together. Let's put the learners that do the lectures and stuff better together and have this assortment that way. We need to make sure our children are taught outside the box. We need to make sure they know how to start a business, how to be self-sustainable, and to do a budget, how to learn about student loans and things. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. That completes the questions for Ward 1 candidates. Next up, yes. Next up are the Ward 2 candidates. The first question will go to Irene Nordheim, who will receive 2 minutes to respond. Afterward, Chris Sigerson will get 2 minutes to answer the same question. They're beginning to stick together.
You need to draw this out.
At number 12, the question being, it is acknowledged that poverty has a serious impact on student learning outcomes. As a trustee, what are some ways you feel the division can work to support students in need on this issue? Irene Nordheim, your time will start when you are ready.
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's comforting for me to know that the Riel School Division has included in their multi-year strategic plan that exact issue. So equity, diversity, and inclusion, those are all things that are being worked on in this division as we speak. The purpose of the board is in supporting the superintendent to make sure that those actions are happening in the front line and that teachers and staff have what they need in order to make sure that that's happening. I can speak specifically to the community school concept. At Lavallee School, prior to the pandemic, we worked very hard to make sure that that community had access and voice in the direction of their school. the after-school programs, daycare, and community opportunities to get together, to speak together, to solve problems coming from the community. That was a very successful project, and I know that it was supported by this previous board, and so I hope that that's something that we can continue on. Our kids deserve it, and poverty is something that we all need to be addressing, but I know that Louis Riel has that in their headlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Next is Chris Sigerson, who will respond to the same question. Chris?
Yes, thank you. It's ironic to follow Irene Nordheim on this particular question because during her time, of course, as assistant superintendent, she did a wonderful work for our division on this very issue. So, and I can certainly echo a lot of what she has said. We certainly, people think of St. Vital and Ward 2 specifically as affluent areas, but we do have pockets of generational poverty that rival anywhere in the city, and we have to work on that very, very diligently. And I believe that we have been doing a good job on that in recent years in LRSD with the report from Jim Silver and the work that's being done at RDC. I recently toured RDC with work with the newcomers and work with English languages, work with the after-school programs. We also have the Aspire programs for the for summer programs so the kids can not lose over the summer. Kids that can't afford other, families that can't afford other things to do in the summer. And there's also the Boys and Girls Club. All of those programs are doing well. They're all threatened by potential budget cuts, and they're all threatened by the ratcheting down of the funding. And that's the issue that we have to tackle to make sure that we get the proper funding that we can continue this good work. And as Irene said, we do need a board that, that understands this issue and that stresses this issue and makes sure that the superintendent and administration keep working on this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The second question will go to Robert Page, who will have 2 minutes to respond to it. Afterward, Irene Nordheim will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Number 10. How would you advocate to support students with diverse learning profiles in LRSD? Robert Page, the timer will start when you speak.
Well, basically, as a trustee on the board, I would support measures brought forward by the superintendent and the assistant superintendents that are designed to accommodate students with diverse learning profiles. It's the kind of thing that the school trustees don't sort of go into the schools and look for situations and then come back and plan how to deal with them. The problems are brought to us, but a willingness to find places in the budget for students with diverse learning abilities and supporting teachers and encouraging teachers to address the different learning methods that there are, not methods, but like Amy said, the 13 different types of learning skills. And so basically, when those things come to us, listen, ask questions, and the one employee that we have as trustees is a superintendent. And when the superintendent comes with plans, if we've hired a good superintendent, he's going to come with good plans, and they might need tweaking and they might need emphasis for budgeting. But I think that once you've hired a good superintendent, which we have done, by the way, you get out there and support them. Ask questions and support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next is Irene Nordheim, who will respond to the same question.
Frank. I think one of the things that we have to remember is that education is an ever-evolving craft, and that as trustees, one of the things that we can do is provide adequate funding for professional development, support professional development as teachers working with the kids required to upgrade their skills at all times. Diverse learning needs is the full spectrum. So it's kids who need more support and kids who need a different way of learning and a creative way of learning. And I think some of the pilot projects, some of the creative solutions that have been taken by Riel School Division in project-based learning, in the development and success of the French immersion programs, these are all things that require teachers to have the skills in order to provide that kind of diverse learning. So I think we advocate through professional development. I think we advocate through providing budget supports as best we can to make sure that the priorities are following what, again, our multi-year strategic plan includes, which includes belonging as one of the pillars. This would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. The third question will go to Chris Sigerson, who will have 2 minutes to respond to it. Afterward, Robert Page will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question. Number 3. How would you describe an effective school trustee? Chris, the timer will start when you speak.
Well, an effective school trustee is collaborative, is engaged, is polite, is properly attuned and free to communicate with the people in the community. And I think those are the most important elements. It's a complicated question in a way because there's so many factors that go into doing this job properly, because it is an important yet complicated job. But I think, as I've said, the most important things are to understand and listen to the community, to collaborate with your colleagues, and to be engaged and to always be on top of the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next is Robert Page, who will respond to the same question.
Well, first of all, everything that Chris said is very well spoken. And I think, though, that an effective trustee not only does all that, but has to be able to work for and sometimes push for the really big issues that do come up from time to time. For instance, maintaining a single-track French immersion program, making sure that there's a good school transportation system, getting kids to schools. That takes a lot of work. And another key issue is what we've just gone through with sometimes having to switch schools because of changing demographics and changing patterns in population, which I guess is the same thing. But realizing the need for changing a school, such as Varennes, we got to tear that building down and build a new one on the playground. Well, build a new one first and then tear the old one down, of course. And including a playground that's community-oriented, so that it's a nice park-like green space for the community as well as for recess for the students. Pushing for a new school in Sage Creek because the new school that opened there was overcrowded the day it opened. So there's lots of little stuff, there's lots of fluff for trustees, but really working to see that the important issues are met. They are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. That completes the questions for Ward 2 candidates. And now we turn to the Ward 3 candidates. The first question will go to Brent Amos, who will get the opportunity to respond to it. Afterward, Ryan Palmquist will receive 2 minutes to respond to the same question.
I'm not last.
I can't say anything. Okay, good, as long as we all know that. Number 18. LRSD has experienced and will continue to experience pressure from French immersion enrollment. How would you address this? Brent, your time will start when you speak.
An easy answer might be, let's just build some more schools. Is that feasible? With unlimited funding? Sure, but I don't think that's realistic. I think you have to look where space is available. I think the idea of dual-track schools is a solution. To me, that's the most effective, cost-effective solution with the least disruption to the existing school populations. There are shifting populations in the schools, and I don't personally see a problem with having a dual-track school versus a single-track school. I know with the recent change of McDowell, it was so disruptive to many families in the existing school populations. I don't see why the school hadn't been made, I don't see why the school couldn't have been made dual-track. Now that's just possibly me looking from the outside, but to me that way a lot less families would have been impacted. We also have to consider the fact that there's not an unlimited pool of immersion teachers. We have to ensure that we have adequate funding. I think we have to look at enhanced university programs that'll target potential immersion teachers. We have to get more immersion teachers trained, and I think targeting the universities is one way of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Next is Ryan Palmquist, who will respond to the same question. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to respond to that. So my understanding is that one of the main barriers to French immersion programming is the just extremely competitive labor market when it comes to demand for French-speaking teachers. And one of the most obvious, I think, specific policies that could be brought forward would be creating environments, creating a program, for example, that might incentivize early retirement to open up permanent contract spots that allow the LRSD to be more competitive with other divisions, as well as in the teaching market in general for the hiring of French-speaking teachers, essentially being first in line to scoop them up when they become available. That's a specific policy that I think could benefit both current Riel teachers as well as the next generation coming in. And further, more broadly, and agree with one of the things that Brent said, is that we do produce a great many graduates of French immersion programming, and we could be doing more in order to encourage and support essentially lifelong living and learning in French, the continuing bilingualism of graduates in order to broaden the pool of French-speaking individuals in our bilingual society who can be recruited and hired as teachers. And then my last comment would be that I I respectfully disagree on the dual track component. I myself live in essentially a dual track immersion home environment where I'm trying to learn French from my two sons. And early on, when they were younger and unilingual, I was making much faster progress as a first language English speaker, learning French all the time from deep, intense immersion of simply having to speak French. And I believe that that benefits students more in the single track environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. The second question will go to Darlene Garier, who will receive 2 minutes to respond. Afterward, Sandy Nemeth will get 2 minutes to answer the same question. Whoop. Number 16. What is your stance on public-private partnerships? Darlene, your time will start when you are ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. I think that in the end, schools need to be funded properly. That is the wish of all of us, that our schools will be funded properly and appropriately so our kids get what they need. I don't think that we should be dependent on businesses, although there are cases where we can work in partnerships with public and private. For example, Career Trek that we use in our school division that helps over 500 students, our entrepreneurial programs that we have for our students. But in the end, I think that schools need to be funded by the government and funded properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Next is Sandy Nemeth, who will respond to the same question. Sandy?
Thank you. I would say that my stance on public-private partnerships, or P3 partnerships as they're known, is one of cautious support. There is many a school division in rural Manitoba that has a playground thanks to this type of arrangement, and at least one school division in Metro Winnipeg that has a football field thanks to this arrangement. So I think to close the door on having the conversation from the outset is counterproductive, because it could lead to really exciting opportunities for students and communities that might not otherwise be available. The cautious part that I reference is simply a need on my part that I see to ensure that part of those conversations talk about long-term sustainability of whatever it is that's being developed. Naturally, infrastructure needs looking after over time, and I think part of those partnerships has to include what happens 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road when there is maintenance and repair to be done. And, you know, have a funding piece in place or a line in a budget that talks about, you know, long-term maintenance of something that potentially and likely is going to be very important to a community and the students and families within it.
Thank you, Sandy. The third question will go to Sandy Nemeth, who will receive 2 minutes to respond. Afterward, Brent Amos will get 2 minutes to answer the same question. Number 7. As a trustee, how would you work to ensure a good working relationship with the teachers in LRSD? Sandy, your time will start when you are ready.
Okay, thank you. In terms of ensuring a good working relationship, I think it is a lot about what we've talked about in various ways this evening, which is very open, honest dialogue and conversation. We have a very robust policy structure that speaks to professional development. It is something that we value and support for everyone who works in Louis Riel School Division, and I think that is key to building good relationships, is including in ensuring that everybody who works and learns in Louis Riel School Division has the opportunity to be successful and go as far as they can. Those policies will also speak to culture and climate peace in classrooms and schools. I think it's about ensuring our schools are very safe and welcoming environments for everybody. And I think it's also about understanding the expertise that teachers bring into our schools and encouraging them to be bold in their thinking and their approaches, to be creative in what they perhaps want to offer their students, and doing everything that we can and supporting it in policy and in our strategic plan to ensure that all those opportunities are realized.
Thank you, Sandy. Next is Brent Amos, who will respond to the same question.
I will always advocate for teachers. I'll advocate for safe working conditions, and the big thing is professional development. If invited, I'd love to meet teachers, have them voice their concerns, and listen to suggestions on how things can improve. I think I better be open since my daughter and son-in-law are teachers and half of my friends are teachers, so I can just hardly wait. And if I am elected, like I said before, it'll probably be a minute or two before my phone is ringing off the hook offering suggestions. If invited, I'd love to meet teachers, have them voice their concerns, and to listen to suggestions on how things can improve. Teachers are on the front lines. They know what goes on a daily basis, and they care for the children. It's imperative that we have to listen to them. And if you haven't figured it out, I love talking to people. I love listening. My wife always jokes, if I'm going to Sobeys for a loaf of bread, she says, try not to take 2 or 3 hours. Because I always meet people in the community, and I love listening, and I love talking. That's how I see myself as a trustee. I want teachers to talk, and I want to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. The fourth question will go to Ryan Palmquist, who will receive 2 minutes to respond. Afterward, Darlene Garier will get 2 minutes to answer the same question. Number 9. What learning and working conditions are most important in our schools, and how will you as a trustee ensure that these remain important?
Yeah, I was hoping I would get this question. Learning and working conditions. The learning conditions would be on the side of the students, and the working conditions on the side of the parents. Learning conditions, we have to have students that are first and foremost fed and in a steady and sound physical and emotional state. I believe that is the biggest barrier to success for students arriving at school. There are many students across Winnipeg and in LRSD, including at schools in every corner of the division who are not receiving enough food at home and are coming to school without food, and that is obviously impacting their ability to reach their full potential as students during the day. And so those students, setting aside all educational practices and principles, if they don't have the absolute basic of their needs met, we can't expect much more of them beyond that. And then on terms of working conditions, supporting teachers and creating the best possible environment for teachers. A major one, and I say this as someone married to a teacher, is the practice of teachers paying out of pocket for school supplies and or the general day-to-day functioning of their classrooms is extremely problematic. It's not unheard of in other jobs, but it is pretty rare. And for something that is so critical to their performance and to the performance of our whole society and our children, that really needs to be addressed first and foremost, as well as creating the proper conditions, a working environment for a teacher is not only what we owe to them as professionals and employees, but creating the best environment for them to work in is what is going to create the best environment for the children that they are responsible for during the day to learn in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next is Darlene Garier, who will respond to the same question. Darlene?
Well, I'm anxious to answer this question. As a teacher for many years, and I currently teach at the University of Manitoba, and I teach graduate teachers who are out in the field all over Manitoba, and they are becoming guidance counselors and student services teachers, and they talk to me all the time about some of the needs in the schools. Right now, we want to really focus on the positive, respectful learning environments that are in our schools, the safe and healthy, inclusive schools, and that includes the buildings, the HVAC systems, the air quality upgrades, the safety for everybody. Right now, I know our board is working on upgrades to a lot of our schools, Marion Jean Sauvé, Hastings. Professional development is very important to teachers to keep current and to have their working conditions met. We need to keep up our practical arts and our equipment and everything like that. That's important for learning for the students. We need to have supports for the students and teachers as far as the clinical services people. I've had questions from the community about, accessing resource from speech and language pathologists and how they go about that and how to navigate those systems. We have to value our classroom spaces and give the teachers room to work and room to be safe. So the working conditions are important for everything all around us and to ensure that we have a quality education in Louis Riel School, which we have had for the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. That completes the questions for the Ward 3 candidates. Before we move to the very important informal portion of our event, the LRTA would like to take a moment to acknowledge the many people, groups, and organizations who were important in helping to put this event together. I would now like to call upon the Louis Riel Teacher Association President, Marcella Cabezas. Marcella?
Thank you again, Frank. Firstly, the LRTA would like to thank the Manitoba Teachers Society for providing the grant to help make tonight possible. We would also like to thank the Louis Riel School Division for its help in promoting this evening's event to the greater LRSD community. As well, we would like to extend our thanks to the broadcast media program at the Louis Riel Arts and Tech Center for running the live streaming and audio aspects of this forum. Also from the LRATC, we would like to thank their culinary arts program for preparing the food that is awaiting folks on the side there, so please go and dig into the beautiful dainties they prepared. And lastly, oh yes. Don't forget the food. Yes, the food is good. Lastly, I would also like to recognize the efforts of our LRTA Public Relations Chairperson, Karen Mishkowski, for her work in organizing and executing this evening's forum. Thank you, Karen. Thank you also to the members of the Forum Organizing Committee and the members of the LRTA Executive who were present this evening who also assisted. As stated before, we strongly encourage members of the public to stay and interact with the candidates. This is your opportunity to ask further questions of them to help you in selecting the folks you will vote for on Election Day, which is a few days away on Wednesday, October 26th. Thank you again to those of you who've joined us here in person and also to the folks who've joined us via live stream. Take good care, have a wonderful evening, good night, bonsoir.